Well, good morning, everyone. Always a pleasure to be back here. I have a very brief presentation, more for stimulating thinking around our agenda today. And of course, it's about the SDGs. And I think that we have to start by acknowledging some of the risks around business engagement with the SDGs. There is a very real risk that business may pervert the original intentions and the goals. And there are three main risks. One is that business ignores the SDGs. And you may say, well, that's impossible. We're all engaged. That's why you're in the room. But when you think about another initiative like the UN Global Compact, which has been around now for decades, and still only 10,000 companies signed up. There are hundreds of millions of companies in the world. So if the SDGs achieve a similar lack of penetration, effectively most of the business world will have ignored them. The second real danger is that business spins the SDGs, and we're far enough in now, 2 years or 3 years down the road, that we start to see this. I call it rainbow washing, not so much greenwashing, but now with all these lovely bright colors, companies love to take those colorful blocks and use it in their marketing. So there's a real danger of that they don't really change anything fundamentally, but just use it as a PR spin. More common, I'm finding, is that business is cherry-picking the SDGs. What does this mean? Well, of course, they look at what they're already doing, and they look at the SDGs, and they say, oh, how wonderful, we're doing something in this SDG and something in that SDG, so we don't actually change anything, but now we're able to say that we're addressing the SDGs. All of these, I think, are lacking a systems thinking approach. There's no interconnectedness, there's no transformation, and as you know probably from systems science, if we don't get to systemic transformation, then we see breakdown in society, which is, of course, what the SDGs are trying to prevent. There are two main approaches here to the SDGs that I think fall into this trap and these risks. The one is a philanthropic approach, and this is very typical. We saw it with the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals as well. As an example, Ferrovial has a project where they match employee donations to good social projects, and they happen to be in certain SDG areas, notably in this case in poverty and climate change, and so that's their approach to the SDGs. Now, nothing wrong with philanthropy. I'm not anti-philanthropy, but it's not a transformational agenda. Or the Sahara Group, this is an example where they're trying to do a bit of capacity building with the government. Again, a good thing, but it allows them to line up with the SDGs. Doesn't change anything about how they do business, but they're able to rainbow wash. And then you take the other approach of companies, which is to say, well, let's find the commercial angle. So if you look at Tongwai as an example, they're in the area of agriculture, and they've realized that not only in agriculture, but also sustainable energy is a great business or commercial benefit for them, so they're starting to invest in some solar panels. Direct benefit to the business, not a bad thing, but again, is it transformational? Are they really changing how they're doing their business? Are they getting any kind of leapfrogging? SAB Miller, similarly, doing lots of good work around water, we know that, but in this case, a sorghum beer in Africa, where they're working with small farmers to empower them. Good thing, not transformational. So all of those fall into the trap of the risks. Of course, there is a positive agenda as well, and I'm sure that all of the companies represented in this room are on the positive side of the balance sheet. The opportunities, of course, are that business really does adopt the SDGs, And what could this mean? Well, it means that, that they take something of an integrated approach. An example here might be Port of Antwerp, which made a very conscious decision not to cherry pick. It was very tempting for them because there were a few SDGs that aligned very closely with their business. But instead, they've looked very hard at how they can do something on all of the SDGs and how they're interlinked. Even better than that is when a business uses the SDGs to innovate. Can it be an agenda to really push them further? A step beyond that is even to use it as a transformational agenda. This means, could we go beyond the SDGs or use the SDGs to change the rules of the game? We know that we're in a fundamentally unsustainable economic system. How could we use the SDGs to really rethink those set of perverse incentives and structural and policy rules of the game? One approach that gets us a little bit closer to that is a hybrid approach where there are clear philanthropic and commercial benefits. Here you've got a Microsoft example where they're increasing digital literacy in sub-Saharan Africa, building digital hubs. Of course, it's good for them, for their business, but it's also philanthropic. It gets us a little bit closer. I still don't think it's necessarily transformational. Or H&M, indeed, working with UNICEF to help to keep children in school. And that obviously is good for H&M because they don't want to be associated with child labor. It has a commercial benefit. It clearly has a philanthropic social benefit as well. Even this hybrid approach I don't think goes far enough. And what we really should be looking for are the synergies between SDGs to the extent that they reverse areas of systemic breakdown. And this is really where we struggle. We're not seeing at the moment the interlinkages between SDGs. So this is a framework I use, looking at areas of breakdown in society, which are disruption, disconnection, disparity, destruction, and discontent, and then seeing where we're having counter forces which are bringing solutions to that in the resilience economy, the exponential or digital economy, access or sharing, circular, and the well-being economy. And in each of those areas, we have approaches to innovation, secure, smart, shared, sustainable, and satisfying. And what integrated value does, if we use that as an agenda or a lens in which to approach the SDGs, is it looks for the synergies. So can you have a smart solution that's also sustainable? Or can you have a shared solution that's also satisfying? And I think if we bear this in mind as we look for solutions, and indeed as we look for partnerships between academia and business, we'll be able to get that kind of real move forward that we need if we're going to not only deliver the SDGs, but move our world to something that's truly sustainable.